So please help me welcome Lorien to the stand.
I just want to say, start off by thanking the organizers for inviting me here. It's a privilege and an honor to be here at the first inaugural Africa Bitcoin conference, I think the first of many to come as this space matures. Okay, just to tell you about myself, I'm not actually a web developer. I'm a back-end engineer. And for about 20 years now, I've been building solutions for media companies, advertising agencies, banks, and other financial institutions. And then for the last 5 years, I've been working at a smart energy company, developing smart grids and expanding the Internet of Things. So now, whoops, let me get my thing up here. Still no sign. Sorry, guys. Oh, it's there, it's there. Okay, cool. Okay, can you see that? It's not very bright. It's warming up. Okay. Okay, so the title of this talk is Smart Grids in the Blockchain, Bitcoin's first killer app. Now, it is a bold thing to claim that you've got the answer. But as you see, as this presentation develops, you're going to see why myself and a lot of people think that this is potentially something that will spread the adoption rate, and who knows, if it's not the first killer app, maybe it'll be a killer app. Okay, so it's titled Smart Grids, and before I get into explaining to you what a smart grid is, what I need to do is tell you what a grid is, a conventional grid. So now a grid is something that we actually all interact with every day of our lives, and we don't even give a second thought to it. And without them, civilization as we know it wouldn't exist. So, to start off, a grid is essentially a supply network delivering utilities like gas, electricity and water from producers to consumers. The utility is generally channeled through an intermediary like a municipality. And I'm going to be using a municipality as an example throughout this talk. And the municipality will channel it through to residential or industrial or commercial customers. Now, the intermediary, the municipality, what the municipality will do is they'll buy the utility in bulk. So let's say we're talking about electricity. And then they will send it, they will on-sell it to their customers. And to know how much their customers are consuming, they need to measure or meter the consumption. So when we're talking about meters, that's how those municipalities know how much you're using. Now, in a conventional grid, it's not very smart. Somebody actually has to physically come every once in a while to the meter and take a reading. Then they bring the reading back to the municipality, and the municipality then calculates the consumption against a tariff and issues a bill. Now, there's two different modes that a meter can exist in. The first is a postpaid meter, which is this sort of situation where a customer will consume the electricity, and then after the fact, the reader will come and take a reading and then take it back to the municipality. And then the customer gets billed. So now that's an after the fact situation. First the consumption happens, and then the readings happen and the bills get generated. So a customer can consume, and then only then do they have to pay. The other mode that a meter can be in is in a prepaid mode. Now I'm sure this is something you all recognize and maybe even have in your own homes, where you have to buy the electricity up front, and then you load it onto your meter, and you consume it all up, and if you want to have your lights back on, you have to now go and top it up. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about prepaid metering. So now, there's a lot of problems with this. For example, the meter reader might not take readings very regularly. They might miss a month, almost 2 months. And then bills start becoming estimated, and this leads to disputes. I think we're probably aware of that too. I often have to claim incorrect billing on my account. Also, the meters themselves, this is very prevalent not just in South Africa but around the world. They can be tampered with and bypassed, and customers can actually then steal electricity. Also, what's very important in a grid is to know the demand. Whoops. I better keep touching this thing so it doesn't sleep. So it's the municipality won't get an idea of the demand. The demand is basically the pattern of usage throughout the month. Now, there's often peak periods when everybody's now using electricity and they put on all their pool pumps and their geysers, and then demand goes very high. And then there's very low demand. And this way, it's impossible for the utility to know what the demand is throughout the month. They just get a reading at the end of the month. Also, chasing down those bills is a very difficult and complicated process. Now, a smart grid, all a smart grid is doing is removing the human element and making the meter itself intelligent by adding internet capabilities, and it becomes part of the Internet of Things. This way, there doesn't have to be a human that comes and reads once a month or every so often. The readings are automatic. They can be polled as often as you like. Also, the devices themselves can be configured remotely. Sometimes you need to go and tweak the meter and give new functions. Also, there's alerts and notifications. So if somebody does decide to go and tamper with the meter or bypass it, the utility or the municipality will know immediately. So there's a lot of features and a lot of benefits to having a smart grid. There can be demand forecasting. The municipality can now know when people are using a lot of electricity and when they're not. So they can prepare for that. And you won't have issues like we have here in South Africa where there's a lot of brownouts. Sometimes there's load shedding or something like that. Also, with prepaid vending, which is your prepaid meter, you can actually load the meters directly. There's real-time reporting of the state of the grid. So if you're a municipality, you can know that your grid is healthy and it's functioning correctly. Also, most important of all, is those bills are accurate and can be sent out timelessly. Okay, so it's a no-brainer that, and we can see it now happening, that the whole world is moving to this concept of the smart grid and smart metering. It's necessary. Otherwise, the system that we have now, there are very few power stations, coming online around the world, and demand is increasing. So by 2023, 80% of the grids in America will be smart, 60% in Europe, and 45% in Asia Pacific. Now, you'd think that with all the smartness happening in our grid, that the problems are solved. But in fact, this now brings us to the most difficult problem to solve, in fact, and the biggest problem of all, which is now the point of this talk. And that is payments. So your grid can be as smart as you like, and your bills can be accurate, and you can know the state of the grid. But if your customers aren't paying for that, they consume, it's worthless. The whole system is unsustainable, and it will collapse. So what are the ways that people have to make payments? And you'll recognize these all. There's cash payments. This is the least preferred method for vendors and for customers. It means that the customer has to go to a physical location. They have to carry cash. They have to make the payment. Now, in a lot of countries, often, and in the case studies we have, people often don't pay that much for electricity. They sort of pay what they need as they go along. So actually getting to a payment vendor sometimes can cost as the same amount that you're about to pay for the electricity, or it'll add significantly onto the costs. Another method is SMS payments or text payments. Now, this is also not really preferred, especially by the customers, because the customer has to have a virtual wallet somewhere, and they have to top up that wallet and keep funds reserved in that wallet. And nobody likes to keep money aside to make payments. They'd rather just pay as you go. So this, we have found, is not a very used system. Then you get vending machines. Now, these are these boxes that you might find in a shopping center or something. You go and put in your money, and you make the payment, you get a token, and then you can go load it on your meter. This is very costly. You have to control these vending machines if you own them. They can be vandalized easily. They can be damaged. Also, there's a lot of security issues around it because they're now storing cash, and that has to be security controlled. So this is now an expensive option. And then we get banking services, so credit card payments, ATM payments, or internet payments. Now, all these options are either inconvenient or have a very high fee, sometimes up to 17%. So people, if they're using a convenient option, they'll be paying a lot for the service. If it's convenient, it's actually probably not as available. Now, we've heard about the unbanked, and it's and Elizabeth yesterday said she doesn't like that term, but it is a slang term, and all it means is a person who doesn't have access to banking services. They don't have a bank account. They don't have a credit card. They can't use internet payments to pay for the electricity. And these are 2013 numbers, but this is from the World Bank, Global Findex, and it just shows you the extent of the unbanked population in the world. Over half the world are unbanked, so this is economically active adults. 80% are in Africa, 65% in Latin America, and nearly 60% in Asia Pacific. These numbers might have changed over the year or so, but that's essentially the picture. So banking is a convenient method, but not everybody has it. So now, at the energy company that I've been working at and focusing all my energy for the last 5 years, we develop solutions around the smart grid. So we have to now deal with how do we get as many convenient and cheap payment methods out there in the public so municipalities can recover their costs. And we've addressed all these issues, but there's still a massive amount of the market that isn't reached by these payment methods. So we spent months and months identifying any payment provider we could, seeing what their fees were, seeing how easy it would be to put that mechanism in place. But we just couldn't cover everybody. So now, what we needed to do was find an option. So now, in keeping with tradition, I need to tell you now when I first heard about Bitcoin. It was in June 2011. I stumbled onto an article from Gorka about this underground website where you could buy anything illegal imaginable. And it used this anonymous internet currency called Bitcoin. So as a software developer, the first thing I thought was, let's go shopping. No, I'm kidding. I looked into this anonymous currency because I could see that it was an open protocol. It was something that I could look at and work with without any restrictions. A payment mechanism that I didn't have to go and get an agreement with a bank. I could build payments into the software directly. So having known that since 2011 and having been faced with these problems, and in particular this problem, I thought to myself, okay, what I'm going to do is build Bitcoin into our current solution. So people could actually pay Bitcoin, because understanding Bitcoin, you know it's the most efficient and frictionless payment method ever that has ever existed. And I thought, it's difficult for people to get bank accounts, and it's very easy for people to have Bitcoin wallets. Okay, so now I'm going to break the golden rule of presentations, and I'm going to offer a live demo. But if it doesn't work, it's a moment of embarrassment. But if it does work in the live demo, by the way, sorry, before I go on to that, what I'm about to show you actually is around South Africa. Our company, well, the energy startup, the energy company that I work for, already has customers around the country, communities that can right now pay for their utilities in Bitcoin. So all I'm going to do is I'm not going to show you this new prototype or this new thing, this new idea. This is something that exists right now in this country, and soon to be in Nigeria and Tanzania as the company expands. We've got tenders that we are about to win. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask for some audience participation. I want everybody to pay 10 Bitcoins to that address. And good things will happen. No, okay, all right. This is, in the corner over there, what we have is the home of Bob and Alice. And they have a very nice little flat overlooking the harbor. But Alice is really mad with Bob because he forgot to buy electricity this afternoon. And now they're in the dark. But Bob knows that his meter is Bitcoin enabled, and he has friends at a Bitcoin conference right now who all have free Bitcoins on their phones that they receive from BitX. So I would like, if somebody would like to do it, or more, maybe more the better, can you try and send a millibit, perhaps, to this account? Now, a millibit is about 3 rand, I think. And the tariff here, if I'm not mistaken, is about 1 rand 40 for a kilowatt hour. So we can go and help Bob and Alice by sending a millibit to this address, and we can see if we can actually save them. So is there anybody here who would like to? Now this could take a few minutes, so I'm going to carry on because there has to be confirmations, and there's network issues and stuff, and you never know, And also, if I carry on talking, maybe you'll forget if nothing happens. All right. Okay, so has anyone done this, by the way? Has anyone made a payment? Awesome. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. No refunds. Okay. Okay, so how did I do it? So essentially, somebody every meet. Thank you very much. So, as I said, this exists around the country. This isn't a crazy prototype. Okay, so how did I do it? Essentially, every single meter now that's out there is assigned a one or more Bitcoin addresses. And what we do is we receive Bitcoins on that address. We then calculate the amount based on the market value which we retrieve. And we calculate that onto a tariff, and we work out how many kilowatt hours. By the way, this is an electricity meter. This works the same for water or for gas. So it's the same thing. It calculates the tariff. It works out how many kilowatt hours that is, and then it goes and loads the meter. Now, this is an internet-enabled device, so it's now gone through the network, and it's now, boom, Shazam. All right. Now... Okay, so now this exists, and this is now this is a smart metering company that exists in South Africa. All right. So when this happened, I thought to myself, "This is awesome. This is too cool. This is world-changing. I don't want to just have a company that provides this as a service. That's one of their features." So I decided to found Ban Ki-moon, and what Ban Ki-moon's going to do now. And we are actually, that company's actually been self-funded up to this point. We're developing tools and services. So any smart metering company around the world can now accept Bitcoin payments for energy or for utilities. Now, you can imagine what that means. That means you can be anywhere in the world, and you can now go and send electricity or water or gas to anybody else in the world. I mean, the potential is enormous. It's, for example, let's think of some examples. Imagine a student abroad, and they are studying there, and they need to have their meter topped up. They would phone a parent and say, "Mom, please send me some money. I need to pay for electricity." The parent doesn't have to remit anything. They can just go and top that meter up directly with Bitcoin. Simple. Another interesting use case for this is imagine with foreign aid. Imagine a school in Central Africa, let's say, a poor school. And donors can now go and focus that aid and directly contribute to the energy of, let's say, that school. So somebody can now go and top up that school's meter and provide electricity for a week, or give them water or gas. As I'm saying this, I'm sure you guys are now thinking, whoa, like, okay, I've got some ideas, for this. So this is potentially, and I think, and the people I've been involved in, and by the way, this is actually the first time I've publicly shown this to a South African audience. I've been invited around the world to not to demonstrate this. This is the first time I've actually publicly demonstrated it. I've spoken about it at other conferences, and I'll be in Prague next month to do the same. But this is potentially game-changing for driving Bitcoin adoption. Now, people who don't have access or feel that it's too expensive to use cash or go to vending machines, they now have an option to be able to pay with Bitcoin. So they now will have an incentive to acquire Bitcoin. We're very excited about it, and I hope you guys are a little bit excited about it. Okay, okay, but that's not all. Also, what Ban Ki-moon is doing is we now are working with Ethereum. And we are now developing smart contracts around this. Now, a smart contract, if you're not entirely sure what a smart contract is, all it is, it's a decentralized unit of business logic that exists on the blockchain. And you can now pay Bitcoins to a smart contract. The smart contract can consult an oracle. An oracle just means information. In this case, it would be, let's say, a tariff oracle. And it will calculate the tariff and automatically, autonomously push energy or water through to a meter. So we're busy prototyping this. We're just hoping Ethereum can eventually take off. But this works. And this is another very interesting thing now. So now a company doesn't really have to own that process. It can actually be a smart contract on the blockchain, which is very, very cool. And then another thing we're just playing around with, whether there's a use case for this or not, is a platform for shared services. So now let's just say, this is an example. If you have a street in a neighborhood, and those lights normally are just powered by the council. But now maybe you can actually have the residents of that street contributing directly to the power on those street lights. So everybody can contribute small amounts of Bitcoin and can power those street lights. So this platform we are conceiving of and working on at the moment is just trying to think of ways that this might be useful, where people can directly contribute to powering something or providing utility for something. So now, I'm not going to carry on about this. I mean, that's the gist. But I do want to just talk about, Bitcoin people and technology people suddenly think they're philosophers when it comes to Bitcoin. Everyone's got an opinion. So I just wanted to talk about some important things now with the Bitcoin space. First of all, the application of Bitcoin to smart metering really shows how deeply digital currencies can pervade our society and make improvements on the status quo. But the problem is most people haven't even heard of Bitcoin yet. We have. We're very rare. But what's very important, if we are believers, is educating people. Now, pushing anarchist or libertarian agendas is perhaps not the best approach, and that's seems how Bitcoiners treat this. It's more constructive to think of digital currencies as complementary technologies, ones that can supplement the existing ones and provide alternatives to the people who don't have them. So instead of trying to tear down the system as a Bitcoin enthusiast or digital currency enthusiast, it should be more our goal to transform the system. Now, banks obviously are an easy target for the sort of far left of the sphere, of the Bitcoin sphere, but they have a lot to learn from this, and they should. Otherwise, they risk facing their Kodak moment and becoming obsolete. No one thought Kodak would end. They did. They didn't keep up. They thought technology was whatever. And actually, some forward-thinking banks are looking into this more than you'd know. I'll rattle off a few, and I'm sure there are more. There's BNY Mellon, there's UBS, there's Bank of England, Credit Suisse, Barclays. And I think, we were all excited here in South Africa when we heard last year that Standard Bank was playing around with this Bitcoin thing. That's when I thought, okay, this is it, it's happened. But Standard Bank's going to accept it, and it's like to the moon. But I don't know what happened there, so it was a bit unfortunate. Okay, so that's my philosophizing. Banki-Moon is a startup. It's a new startup. It's been self-funded up to this point, and but now we are seeking to raise capital, so we can take all this to market and disrupt an industry and make the world a better place. And if anyone would like more information on what I've done or how I've done it, or if you just want to take an early ride on the next unicorn, I'm happy to speak to you. Thank you for listening.
We'll take some questions now.
If you're going to sell electricity to somebody, if you're not a municipality or Eskom, you need to go through very, very arduous steps. So I'm wondering how you've managed to achieve this.
It's very common when a property management company, let's say, in a block of flats, will buy the electricity in bulk and then on sell to their customers. So they will get a preferential rate because they're buying in bulk, and then they will sell it to their tenants and make some sort of service fee, put a service fee on it, to increase their profits. So that's actually fairly common. Providing electricity obviously is very regulated, and I don't think anyone can do it unless you're a government. Yeah, so it is common.
Bitcoin as a payment mechanism is not too dissimilar from keeping a virtual wallet in any sort of mobile banking context. So I'm not exactly sure what benefit that brings in terms of the consumer journey. And the second thing is, well, you pay the electricity bill in any of these countries in local currency, and who's taking the spread on the FX, and who's going to facilitate the transaction fees that you're going to incur at both ends of that between, say, someone sending it from Australia to Brazil?
Someone has to have money in a wallet, a Bitcoin in a wallet. Well, that's the world we are facing, and that's the world I envision, where we all have Bitcoin. The benefit of paying Bitcoin is that you have all the convenience of being able to make an electronic payment without having a bank account, and you don't have to travel anywhere, and also the fees are so low. I'm a step ahead. I envision a world where these problems are solved and we all have Bitcoins, however, and now we can spend them. So that's not the problem I'm trying to solve. The problem is the actual fact that paying for electricity is expensive. Now, you spoke about the FX and all that. Every utility is local, and if they are accepting Bitcoin, the service provided is the exchange from those Bitcoins at the local country into the fiat. And so there is no FX. This is Bitcoin going around the world. Does that answer the question?
I'm struggling a little bit, and it sort of plays to some of the comments made earlier on. If you take Bitcoin out of this use case and you use a credit card, for example, it would still work. So that I don't think that you're actually solving a Bitcoin issue. I think you're just implementing something relating more to the Internet of Things than necessarily Bitcoin. So what is it about Bitcoin specifically in this use case that is interesting?
Just remember, Bitcoin is available to everyone, and its fees are lower than anything that is out there. So being able to incorporate Bitcoin into the system means you're getting all the benefits of Bitcoin, which we all get now. I'm not trying to say that it's impossible to pay for electricity without using Bitcoin. It is. I showed you all the payment methods, but they all have problems. They all have high fees. They're all inconvenient. This is now making that little payment step that much easier through the power and glory that is Bitcoin.
I think the idea of micropayments is great for this, and you mentioned that we would be able to now fund things like schools,
Yes.
Whether it be electricity or water.
Mm.
And will Ban Ki-moon be getting involved in that, kind of presenting where, us as Bitcoin enthusiasts
Yes.
can get involved, maybe contribute towards power for other people?
So as part of the Ban Ki-moon culture and our philosophy is committing to education. I've spoken to groups like this that are not technically savvy, just trying to, without giving them all the technical stuff, just to give them the benefits, show them benefits, the low fees, the fact that anyone who has a smartphone can use it. So that's what I like to put energy into that, and I want to, and I think it's important. Otherwise, a business like mine or a business like anybody else's that we've heard today, it's never going to go anywhere. Bitcoin's never going to go anywhere. So education is key, I think, and I want to put time into that.
Lorien, how much money are you raising and what sort of equity are you offering?
Well, I would like to start hiring some salespeople, maybe an account manager, and maybe 2 or 3 devs. So, I hear about companies like Gem getting funded for $1.5 million. That can go a long way in Africa. You can sustain a company with 5-6 people in an office on that for a year, 2 years. So also, this is not a hard sell. Gem is an amazing company, and I am looking to actually using their services. I think they're great, but they don't have a business model, and the business model here is evident. It's essentially we're a payment gateway, so we can immediately start generating revenue. So that's why I think it's, if I go to investors with this, it's much easier sell. I don't have to say, listen, I'm going to hopefully acquire millions of users and one day figure out how to monetize them. This is going to provide a service and immediately is going to generate income. So I think it's a good proposition.
I work in the energy sector, so pretty interested in what you're doing. But unless you're a very large energy user, say a mine or a very large industrial plant, you're going to be paying standard commercial rates. And so if you're a resident, if you're a homeowner and you're paying £1.20, until you've got a very, very big installed user base, you're going to have to buy the purchase electricity for £1.20, and then you're going to have to put a margin on top. So the homeowner is actually paying more for their electricity than they otherwise would. So why would they use your service?
They are paying a much higher margin that I could ever charge already, because every payment provider has a fee and built in, even cash. When you buy R1.40, let's say, of electricity, that's not going into the electricity. R1.20 perhaps is going into electricity. You're paying a fee for that vendor to provide that service. So every way of paying for electricity now has fees built into it. And like I said, they go up to 17%. That's insane. So I can undercut anybody, because with Bitcoin transactions, the fees are negligible. So this is immediately going to have a positive impact on the price of energy, or the price of water or gas, because the fees are so much lower.
How do you guys account for the volatility of Bitcoin?
Once again, it's the same sort of problem that Jonathan raised earlier, which is, okay, how do you get people to have Bitcoin? And what about the volatility? Now, there are businesses out there that are all seeing a future where those problems are solved. That's why there's hundreds of millions of dollars going into Bitcoin companies right now, because just like the early days of the internet, when a service like YouTube would have been insane on your 14K modem, we can see that those problems are going to be eventually solved, and we're looking ahead of that. All those venture capitalists that are putting money into Bitcoin companies, they know that there's problems. They know that volatility is a huge issue. They know that not everybody can get it because they don't have access to exchanges. But we're seeing beyond that. We're seeing YouTube not in the 90s, which is where we are now. We're seeing YouTube in 2005.
Would it be impossible to think then that you would get some kind of affiliate program in Africa for the unbanked and maybe use platforms like BitPesa to offer your services as well?
I want bitcoins in the hands of everybody, and if I'll do anything for that to happen. Not so it furthers my dream, but I think Bitcoin is going to change the world for the better, and so I'd be happy to consider anything. By the way, I didn't mention it, but this is a Bitcoin system, but we're not limited to Bitcoin. I don't know if you've heard of Shapeshift.io. They have a totally awesome exchange. You don't even have to register, where you can go and exchange your alt currencies for anything else. So we've looked at that, and so if you want to pay Dogecoin or whatever coin, you can.
Do you have any direct competitors? Is anyone else doing this?
Nobody else is doing this. I'm the only one. Now, someone has asked me about patents. As a Bitcoin and as a libertarian, every time someone raises the idea of patenting some Bitcoin technology, it always gets hammered. And I'm totally cool with that. I don't know if this is patentable. I mean, it's a payment method. I can't patent credit card payments at my shop. So I don't know how you can patent this. I don't think. Maybe you can. Maybe I should. Any lawyers?
All right, great. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Lorien.
Thank you very much.